The key to a good-looking satin stitch for applique on the Singer heavy-duty sewing machine is really dialing in the right stitch length. So let me show you what we're talking about. First, go ahead and switch the machine to zigzag and then shorten the stitch length. Now, between 0 and 1 is a picture of a buttonhole. So if you think of a buttonhole, that also has a satin stitch. So somewhere between, and I will kind of give you a hint, about halfway and a little closer to 0 will be the perfect closed up zigzag that will cover this raw edge. Now, it actually all depends on the thickness of thread you're using. So if you use a little bit thicker thread, doesn't have to be, it'll be closer to 1. If you use a little thinner thread, it's going to be closer to 0. Now, how wide you want your stitch width, so with the dial that says width, you're going to find that if you have a small applique piece to go around, you don't want a wide, heavy, overpowering zigzag. So you're not going to be up here at 4, 5, or 6. You're going to find somewhere between 2 and 4. What that number is, that's going to just depend on how much you want it to pop. Now, there are feet that you can purchase from Singer that are clear so you can see where you're going and not just be working through a metal foot. Sometimes they're called an open toe foot or an applique foot. So there are other feet available. Next, the key to a good looking applique is also having some stabilizer under your fabric. So usually like a tearaway, usually one layer is enough, but you have to have something. Otherwise things start to get a little wavy and that just doesn't look good. You're going to also practice just based on what thickness of thread you're working with, where to guide the fabric, and then also have we dialed in that stitch length close enough for what we're looking for. So when you stitch, you really want the majority of the stitch to be formed on the fabric. The right swing of the needle should just barely come off the edge and into the base fabric. So that's what you're going for. So I can see that I'm getting close to having a nice looking satin stitch, but it's not so solid like I'm looking for. So I'm going to shorten this stitch length just a little bit to 0. Not a lot, just turn that dial just enough. Now if your fabrics or your stitches start to kind of pile up and they don't want to go out behind the presser foot, you've gotten it too thick. So just do this a little at a time. You should not have to push it through, but dial in that stitch length until you can get a nice solid look. Now, of course, if it's nice and solid, it doesn't go fast. That's okay. Satin stitch applique is not the fastest thing in the world. And turning corners and curves does take a little practice. So you can see as I've got from where I started to where I was going. Okay, so still a little bit closer to 0. We're going to dial this in. You're going to see it perfect in a second. Ah, yes, I can kind of tell the machine's trying to pull it through. I might be getting a little too close where it needs a little, I'm getting the stitches too heavy. But that's okay, you can find that happy medium. Okay, let's just kind of take a look at what we've gotten so far. We're getting that closer together. See how we can still bring that so that thread touches. And I'm just going to inch in my way to 0, not inching, but just creeping. I don't want to turn it too much, but oh boy, when you see it totally fill in together, you know you have reached the perfect setting. There we go. That's that nice, perfect, close finish that you're looking for. See the difference between where we started, a little bit open. It's okay, nothing great, but then when we finished, how perfect that satin stitch is. So again, depends on your thread. Find the right setting. Make sure you use some stabilizer, and you'll find the perfect applique stitch settings.